Hey everybody, good morning. Mr. The Fanboy here, back for another video, and this time, this is my thoughts on Impact Wrestling in 2017. I'll be talking about this past week's edition of Impact Wrestling, which was the first Impact Wrestling show of 2017, and I'm also going to be talking about TNA behind the scenes, and just overall giving my thoughts on TNA's product currently as of watching the first show. Um, with that being said, while I for the first time in a while, I wasn't excited to watch TNA this past Thursday. I After coming home from taking my grandmother home, I usually catch what's left of TNA and then watch the stuff I missed on a streaming website. This time the streaming website got TNA late, so that's why you haven't seen a review of it. But when I got home, after the match I wanted to see, Mike Bennett and Moose had already finished, and neither Grotto, the Bromance, or Braxton Sutter, he was on Impact but he wasn't wrestling. Braxton Sutter, the Tribunal, none of those guys, or Mahabali Shira, none of those guys were on Impact Wrestling. Were on Impact Wrestling this weekend. The Hardys were there, but they weren't wrestling this week. They had a promo segment with Eli Drake, and of course, the main event. I missed that segment, so I didn't know what the main event was. So after the Rockstar Spud losing to Swoggle, whom I can't stand, even though Swoggle is much better in TNA than he is. He's much better in TNA and other places than he was in WWE, but because of that crappy WWE run, I hate Hornswoggle. And him losing to Rockstar Spud and Rockstar Spud kayfabe quitting. Yeah, it kind of made me turn off TNA. So for the first time in a while, I wasn't happy to see TNA. But after seeing the entire replay from beginning to end, pretty good episode of Impact and pretty good start for TNA this year. Of course, last year I thought TNA was in 2016. I thought TNA was the best show on television. Was the best show on television, and technically it still is. But right now, I'm all into New Japan after seeing that awesome Wrestle Kingdom show. So it's kind of hard to come back to this, and I'm damn sure you're watching WWE. I'm damn sure not watching that. I will at least watch TNA. I will at least watch TNA, even though I know that their best year was 2016. But I don't even watch WWE because of how awesome that Wrestle Kingdom show, that Wrestle Kingdom 11 show was. And of course, yeah, but it was a pretty it was a pretty good show. It was a pretty good show. Now let's talk about some of the departures. Of course, Mandrews departed from the company back in December, and so has Tigre Uno. Kind of saddened to hear with their departure, but especially with Mandrews, can you blame either one of them? Neither one of them were used properly. Well, Tigre Uno was at first. Then over time, he just stopped using him and stopped featuring on television. And Mandrews, he started to become featured on television, but he hasn't been featured on any like major shows with the exception of that Destination X edition of Impact. And then they turned him heel, which I didn't like, but if it meant he would get I didn't like him being a heel, but if that meant he would get more airtime, I was going for it. So I don't blame Mandrews for leaving TNA. And yeah, so yeah, I'm kind of saddened with their departures from TNA. On the bright side, on now let's talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff which I'm hearing. I mentioned last year how I'm really happy, and I really hope TNA gets this off the ground. Their their own developmental show headed by Al Snow, their own training center. I really hope that gets off the ground. I remember reading about that last year. I really hope that gets off the ground so they can start producing their own talent, because it's gonna be kind of hard to lure talent away from WWE because you don't have the money to do that. You don't have the money to do that, so it's gonna be kind of hard to lure talent away from WWE and the indies and stuff. Um, next is so yeah that. Next is the next, so I really hope that. And then of course it was said that yeah, so now Dixie Carter has been forced out of her company, and she's now working closely with the fight committee with the fight committee and the people who are trying to make Impact Wrestling global. So, but she's no longer chairman of TNA, and I think Jim Jarrett has been brought back as a minority owner of TNA, so they can take TNA back to one of their best years, and that was 2008. And 2008 was one of TNA's best years and last good years for a while, in my opinion. Last good year, in a while for a while, in my opinion. That was the year of the that was one of the years, that was the year TNA started touring. TNA started touring. They had the highest ratings. They had a lot of wrestlers like AJ Styles, Daniels, Consequences Creed, Petey Williams, Chris Sabin, um, Jimmy Raven, Lance Hoyt, the Rock Infection, Matt Morgan, Abyss. A lot of wrestlers were still there. A lot of wrestlers were still there. That was one of TNA's best years, and in my opinion, their last good year for a while, up until about 2014. But um, so yeah, so they're yeah, so getting TNA back to what it was back in 2008, that would be pretty that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool, and so yeah, now let's talk about this edition of Impact. Like I said, this edition of Impact, the January 5th edition of Impact Wrestling was for the most part awesome. Now, after watching the full show, it started off awesome with Eddie Edwards, coming out, talking about how it was his dream to be TNA champion, champion, and what the belt means to him. Well, him saying something, I wasn't really paying attention. Then of course Bobby Lashley comes out and calls Eddie Edwards wins over him flukes, and now challenges him and wants to invoke his rematch for the title tonight. Then out comes EC3 doing his taunts, and Bobby Lashley mocks him and calls him a cheerleader. And EC3 mocks Lashley, calling him Robert Lashley. Robert Lashley calls him Robert Lashley and says calls him Robert Lashley and says yeah, like I said, calls him Robert Lashley and says he's also invoking his title clause tonight, and Fast Eddie Edwards makes it a triple threat match for later on that night. But up next, the match I want to see, Moose and Mike Bennett for the Impact Global for the new Impact what's it, I keep forgetting what the belt is called again. The hold on. Impact Grand Championship, for the Impact Grand Championship. Impact Grand Championship. Awesome match. Moose I think Moose won the first and third. Moose controlled most of the match, and I think he won the first and third round to retain his championship. And later, Mike Bennett captured him after the match and talked about how it was a fluke. So at their first one night only pay per view, which I'm interested in checking out, their one night only pay per view, because yeah, these one night only shows are really good. You see lots of interesting matches. You even see sometimes returns of previous wrestlers. Um, the one night onlys are similar to the WWE's In Your House days before they got popular enough to hold multiple to hold pay-per-views 12 months a year. 12 months a year they would have these in your house shows in between the major pay-per-views, and that's what TNA does now. So yeah, then of course I mentioned the Rockstar Spud and Swoggle segment, and like I said, when I saw this on television Thursday, this pissed me off and kind of made me turn off um TNA, because like I said, I hate Hornswoggle. Swoggle, he's much better on the independents and in places like TNA than he ever was in WWE. But that WWE run from 2007 till 2012. That's when Hornswoggle was being majorly pushed. After that, he stopped. After 2000 after 2012 or 13, it was when that's when they stopped pushing him a little. But that entire 2007 to 2012, when he was being shoved down everyone's throats, beating wrestlers, including beating Chavo Guerrero, which I hated. I hated that garbage. And him winning the cruiserweight championship. I hated that garbage too. That just made me totally hate Hornswoggle. And I want to see him get beat up every time I see him. Every time I see him. So him being Spud kind of pissed me off, but Spud put him over strong, and I like Spud at the end talking about how he lost to a 1-year-old guy, said Impact Wrestling sucks, and finally quit. And kayfabe quit Impact Wrestling. So I'm wondering where the Rockstar Spud character goes from here after having a not so good 2016. In 2016, Spud was pretty much what I like to call a main event mid-card style jobber. He was participating in lots of high-profile matches, but just like Desmond Wolfe in TNA's 2010, he was losing all these matches, man. He was losing all these matches and wasn't featured on several shows that year. So yeah, this is a new turning point for the Rockstar Spud character. So I'm really interested in seeing where this goes. But like I said, Swoggle beating him made me turn off the TV, man. Then Hardy Boys had a good segment with Eli Drake. There was also a funny segment earlier with Matt Hardy and Jeff Hardy talking about the Hornswoggle Vince McMahon storyline. Does Vince McMahon know you? Does Vince McMahon how Matt Hardy pronounces? Does he know you're here in Impact Wrestling? And Hornswoggle was like, and a funny segment, he was like, no, that wasn't real. I'm not really his son. That wasn't real. That was a funny segment right there. And then of course Ali taking on Laura. Maria mocking Ali, saying she thinks she's a wrestler now. Well, she said put on her boots and meet her in the ring. So Ali takes on Laura Van Ness. And actually gives a good fight to Laura Van Ness. It's not until Maria and the other woman start flirting with Braxton Sutter, that distracts Ali, allows Laura Ness to hit the pounce for the 1, 2, 3. And then of course the main event of the night. The main event was an awesome triple threat between Eddie Edwards, EC3, and Bobby Lashley. I guess I wanted Bobby Lashley or EC3 to win, but this was just an awesome back and forth match. I really just wanted to see a good match, but if I had to choose a winner, I probably wanted EC3 or Lashley to win. But phenomenal match. Like I said, this was a pretty good Impact, despite not having Shira, Grotto, the Tribunal, just the bromance on this show, and the two departures. I mentioned also Gail Kim and Jaden weren't on this show either. So not having like all like the key wrestlers, and Braxton Sutter was here, but he wasn't wrestling. So having all the so this was all in all a good show. You also had Abyss and Crazy Steve taking on Helms Dynasty in another awesome match. And the end had the DC3 I think that's what they're called, James Storm's new stable, attacking Abyss and Crazy Steve at the end of the match. So like I said, all in all, Good episode of Impact Wrestling to start 2017. But like I said, last year Impact Wrestling was better. This year, New Japan is much better. All right, I'm done, people.